That is fun. I got another new toy. So I have a fishing trip planned for April to go to Campeche to Tarpon, and I needed a rod for that. Well, I didn't. I have a ton of rods, but I also want to test these rods. I want to take the Sage Salt 9-weight R8 with me. I casted all of the Sage Salt R8s, the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, I didn't cast the 15-weight. I will admit that I didn't care to cast the 15-weight. So I casted all the rods, and I can share this with you. They're fun to cast. They're easy. Maybe you had a bad experience with past saltwater rods from Sage. Some of you did. They weren't all that fun to cast. They were durable, they were strong, they were powerful, but they weren't that enjoyable rod to cast that when you're on the deck of the boat all day, you'd kind of like to have that rod that's as easy to cast as one of these. So picks up good, lots of power. I'm casting a Rio Flats Pro on this 9-weight right here. And I'm just gonna rattle through some of my feelings about the other models, even though I don't have all of them out here today. I felt like the 6-weight was a great, streamer rod, bass rod, sea run cutthroat type rod. It pairs really well with a Rio outbound short. The 7-weight was, we enjoyed casting the Rio Flats Pro most on the 7-weight. But if you're looking for an ultralight bonefish rod, thinking Ascension Bay bonefish in the Yucatan, some smaller bonefish where you get a little bit closer and you're throwing smaller flies, I think the 7-weight for a bonefish rod would be highly appropriate. Maybe even some light snook work in the Everglades as well. The 8-weight is kind of the all-around ultralight go-to flats rod. Now, I was told that that rod would not like a bonefish specific line, like a Rio Elite bonefish line. We casted the Flats Pro on, it was great, at 8 line up. That's what I'm casting on the 9 here. And I felt like the Salt R8 in that 890 with a Rio Elite bonefish line on it, if you are a capable caster, you've done some bonefish fishing, some saltwater fishing, you can read your cast visually and kind of see how your loop is behaving and things. That was like the ultimate sniper rig. That ultralight bonefish line had so much distance control with that. I felt like I could carefully place that fly at distance. The Flats Pro line that we tested on it was probably more enjoyable or more fun to cast just because you could feel it kind of load and rebound, much like this one that I'm casting right here. But the distance control with that rig was like, man, if you want to put some bonefish on the line, I felt like that was great. A lot of power in these rods, easy enough to cast. Moving on the 9-weight, I'm looking at the permit line if I'm permit fishing specifically with that rod. The permit line from Rio has a little bit more, it's more tip heavy to get that crab to actually kick over, turn over, and make a good presentation. The Flats Pro is kind of like your Grand Slam line. You can go anywhere, catch anything with it. And that's what I'm going to take to Tarpon and Campeche with me as a floating Flats Pro line. There was a pretty big jump between the 9 and the 10. When you went to the 10, you really could feel that pretty significant jump in just the rod's all-around presence and behavior. It really was a big difference going to the 10. The 10 was a nice casting rod. We threw Flats Pros on that. I did not throw an outbound on it, but like for roosterfish or Dorado or any other species that's fast moving for the boat, an outbound tropical short would absolutely rock. And then when we went to the 11, the only line we tested on that was the clear camo or the clear tip tarpon line from Rio. And I'm going to put all these links in the video description. So when you shop at Reds, if you're interested in getting a Salt R8, we will include a free fly line with any purchase. We think a new rod deserves the right line. So I will put all those links in the video description. But for an all-around inshore killer, this 9-weight is pretty hard to beat. And finally, I'll just offer you a couple of tips just for watching and following the channel. Hopefully you're following. If you want to make casting these heavier rods enjoyable, I used to think it miserable to cast these 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 weight rods. It was just miserable. I got fatigued. And what I found was a lot of the time I would have just a little bit of slack in my line. I would power forward and I would meet that slack, and it was just this harsh response from the rod. So not only was I picking up the tension on the line, but I was also getting the rod to flex and then rebound back. And it would kind of pull my shoulder loose and my elbow loose. And over the years, I've just found if you can ruthlessly eliminate slack, and that's something you'll hear in any casting seminar with me, is if you can ruthlessly eliminate slack through several means, you're gonna have a much better casting experience with these heavy rods. The first one is gonna be lifting the rod tip first before you drive it off the water. The second is gonna be using more energy into your back cast than you believe you need. More energy into the back cast than your forward cast. If I can get that line perfectly tight behind me, now I'm engaged and I'm connected to my fly right off the bat, and I don't have that harsh pickup of the line after removing the slack. The other one is going to be understanding how to keep your line under constant tension. And at risk of my cameraman getting injured here, I'm going to throw some constant pressure casts. But what I'm doing on that is I'm bringing that rod tip very wide, almost in an arc, and then I'm kicking that line hard at the end of that to make sure it gets straight behind me, but I'm never losing connection with that line tension. It's under constant tension or constant pressure. It's also called a Belgian wind cast. We jokingly call it a Patagonia roll cast when we pick it up off the water, and it's great for dealing with wind. But on these heavy rods, it keeps my rod loaded the entire time, so I'm not getting these violent slack tension, slack tension, slack tension. And that's really what makes casting these rods most unpleasant for me. If you can ruthlessly eliminate slack, casting 9, 10, 11, 12 weight rods, it's actually a lot of fun. They go for big distance with not a lot of effort, like that right there. And keep your elbow tight in against your body is my last tip. So thanks for following Reds. Hopefully this quick product review on the Salt R8 is helpful.